Hey there and welcome back. So let's set up the connection for Mongo, and we got the connection string already set. Database, user, password. What we need to do next is we need somehow to connect to it, make a function that connects to the database. So first off, to keep the structure, maybe we should have a new folder in sources called maybe repository. So to indicate that this is the code that will handle all the repositories, whether it is Mongo or Firebase or another type of database or data source. So in here we're going to create a new file called database.ts. And yes, in here, first off, if we want to connect to Mongo, we're going to use this Mongoose library that will help us a bit in connecting to the database. We could also use the MongoDB client, but we're using Mongoose to create an easy way of validating the models and working with Mongo. So we're going to import Mongoose. And then we need some functions here to help us out. And the first one is going to be an async function called, let's see, it could be called connect. And in this, we probably need to have a try catch. We can do it different ways. But for now, let's use this one here. So we have a try and catch. So we will try to connect to the database. And if we have an error, we will catch it in the catch clause. Okay, so we have first off, we have a function here called mongoose connect. And just like we did with the port from the env file, we can do process. And then we can write db host. But right away we get an error from the TypeScript compiler or the TypeScript runtime that tells us that this might be undefined, so the db host might not have a value, so it could be undefined. And we can assign this to connect that will expect a string, as it says in the URI here. So we need to do some extra code. First off, to make sure that if we don't have this db host, we will do something to handle it. And one way to do this could be that we will throw an error. Because if we don't have a database connection string, this is an error and the application cannot start. So like this. So if we don't have a db host set up in the env file, we will throw a new error with this message: db host environment variable is not defined. Okay. And if something goes wrong when we try to connect to the database, we will just write a console message error connecting to the database. And we can pass this error object. So one way to write a connection function, we use the mongoose connection method that will take the db host and try to run this to see if it can connect to the database. Okay, so very simple. We can do extra stuff with this, but let's go back to our app here. We got the start server, and when we are in this, we can see that we're starting up the server and printing out this on the port. So one place we could put this, we could do this in the beginning of the start server, and we would probably need to import connect from, let's see here, we will do the repository, and we will do the, the database. And then from down the server here, we can write connect. So we start, or we test the database. We can optimize this in different ways because we don't close the connection afterwards, but let's just see what happens right now. So let's run start dev. So we don't get anything at the moment. Let's see what happens here in the database. And the reason why we don't get anything, there could be an error. We don't get any error messages. We don't get any messages if it is working okay. So that might be not so optimal. So what we could do is we could add to this function that if it does connect, we will print out a friendly message that everything is okay. So what we could do, because we don't really know if there is an error or not, or maybe if it's timing out or something, but we could do an extension to this function here where we write that if mongoose connection, if we have a DB connection, we will try to execute a command for this. And one command that we can run to the database, we will try to ping it. So if we have a connection, we will try to access the connection. We're trying to run the admin command and ping the connection to see what happens, if it will respond. And if we don't have that, we're going to throw a new error. Database connection is not established, something like this. Could be whatever you want, whatever message you would like to print out to the user or to the system. Okay, so now we have something about the command that is running, but still we are not really printing out friendly messages afterwards. So what we could do is we can just print a console here. Connection established, okay, or something like this. Could be anything that makes sense for you. So let's see what happens. So we get connection established, so that means we are in this part here. So we have done the pinging, which makes sense. Let's see what happens if let's just try out something here. Let's just try to see what happens if, let's just change the username, dbuser2. So now we get an error connecting to the database, bad auth, authentication failed. So that is okay, we get an error message. If we, let's just try to modify the cluster to cluster. Let's see what happens. So we get a different error, error connecting, weird, Mongo, init found, Mongo, it can't find the cluster. So that also is okay that we get some sort of message out from this. So very nice. So it seems to work. Connection established. So one thing about this is that whenever we run any route that we're going to build that will talk to the database, we might connect to the database, but one thing that we need to make sure and that you should be very, very careful of is that you make sure that you disconnect afterwards again, because if you only connect, you might end up having a lot of connections open to the database. And maybe it might run out of connections or be very, very slow. So just as we have something called connect, we also have a disconnect. So we probably should do a small function that can disconnect our database again. So if we do export async function, and it's pretty simple, this function here. We just have a try and catch. So what we can do here, we can do an await, mongoose, and we can disconnect. And if we have an error, see here, error closing database connection, we can attach the error from Mongo. So this is here. Await the mongoose disconnect. If this is okay, we can write a console if it succeeded. All right. So optimally, when we are in here, when we start the server, what we really want to do here is we just want to test the connection. We want to test the database connection, actually. So optimally, we want to connect and then disconnect immediately after. So maybe we could optimize this in a way. We will import the disconnect function also from our database repository file, and we can optimize this. This is code smell that we connect and disconnect. We probably could make a function that just tests the connection inside the database TS file and runs these two functions. But let's see. Yes, let's see here. Error connecting to the database. Client must be connected before running operations. So maybe it's not working totally fine. Let's see. Yeah, something is not working totally correctly. So probably what we need to do to make this work, we should do a final function here. Connection. Oh, if I can type correctly here. So simple function again. Try catch. And this function simply does await connect, does await disconnect. And this is an asynchronous function that will await these two calls before proceeding. So Let's put a console log here. Database connection test was successful. Connect and disconnect. All right, and error testing database connection. This is the error from Mongo or from the application. So let's see. Video is getting a bit long here. Let's see. Hope this will be okay. So let's go back and let's just get our test connection so that we don't need these two. Okay, so crashed the server, restarted it, and let's see. Now we just run a test connection that will do connect and disconnect after each other to test that things are working. So we can see servers up and running, connection established, connection closed right after. So database connection test was successful, indicating that these functions are working. So when we start to do the routes, then optimally, and we're not going to do this in the basic route here, but we might do something called connect, do what we need to do, and then disconnect. Okay, so then we're going to use the connect and disconnect method from that database. Okay, long video. Sorry about that. I hope you make this work. Have fun with this. Bye-bye.